What's up? We are coming to you today to talk about we? Who's we? Me. Me is coming to you today to talk to you about Little Women, the Broadway musical, not to be confused with one of the 7 different film adaptations or the opera. But most recently, there was a 2019 film adaptation directed by Greta Gerwig, featuring a well-known cast, Emma Watson, Timothée Chalamet, and many, many others who were nominated for awards during the Oscar season. So Little Women, the Broadway musical, is based off of the 1868 semi-autobiographical novel by Louisa May Alcott. The story focuses on the 4 March sisters and their mother, Marmee, who's kind of like the pillar of their home. And it follows a portion of their lives at their home in Concord, Massachusetts, while their father is away serving during the Civil War as an army chaplain. So Louisa May Alcott based Little Women loosely off of her childhood experiences. She actually had a really amazing and very progressive life. She was an abolitionist and a feminist. This is in the mid to late 1800s. Her family was actually a stop on the Underground Railroad for a period of time and actually housed a runaway slave. Louisa herself challenged social norms and pioneered new opportunities for women throughout the course of her life. Remember that during this time, it was not like a thing for women to be writers. It wasn't really a thing for women to be anything except attached to a man. And so Louisa May Alcott, among other really, really important writers, we've got Jane Austen, Emily Dickinson, the Bronte sisters, and several others during this time, really paving the way for women in literature. And it was a pretty big deal. The music was written by Jason Howland, who won a Grammy for his involvement in the recording of Beautiful, the Carole King musical. Now, of course, he didn't write the Carole King musical. Carole King wrote the music for the Carole King musical. That's a lot of k sounds. Jason Howland was involved in the recording process and in the production. He was the producer for that album, so he won a Grammy for that. So the story opens in 1866 as Josephine, or Jo as we call her. Now, Jo March is the character most closely based off of Louisa May Alcott. Josephine March receives her 22nd rejection from a novel publisher in New York City. Nobody wants to publish her. Probably because she's a woman. But an acquaintance from New York City, Professor Bear, pops her bubble by telling her that her stories conform to what people want to hear too much. He was like, you need to write the stories that you want to write and stop writing the stories that you think that other people want to read. Just write the story that you want to write. And she's like,
I don't like your criticism.
And he's like, sorry. Then the show flashes back 2 years to the March household where we meet Jo's sisters, Meg, Beth, and Amy. Meg and Jo are invited to the Valentine's Day ball. And Amy wants to go, but Jo is like,
sorry, you're too young. You can't go to the Valentine's Day ball.
And is mean to her, and Amy's like, sad. At the ball is a guy named Laurie. Laurie is the grandson of their neighbor, Mr. Lawrence, and he's a pretty rambunctious character. Laurie is supposed to be like being proper at the ball, like, you know, a gentleman. But instead he dances too much and he passes out, and that's when Jo accidentally sits on him. Jo and Laurie get to talking, and Laurie basically starts flirting with Jo. He'll try to flirt with her pretty continuously throughout the story. When they get back, so they get home from the ball, they get a letter that their dad is sick and Marmee needs to go to Washington, but they can't afford it. So Jo chops her hair off to like sell her hair to pay for her mom to go to Washington. Seems like a really good time for Laurie to ask Jo to marry him. And Jo's like, Laurie, we're friends. This is a joke, right? His proposal was not a joke. So then Laurie gets super offended. He leaves, and then Jo sings this very famous song called Astonishing about how she's going to be astonishing. So we flash forward 2 years back to New York City. Jo makes her first sale. Yay! After, of course, making the suggested edits of her acquaintance, Professor Bear. But right then, everything's going great. Things are awesome. Yay! She receives a letter that her sister Beth has scarlet fever, so she rushes back home to Concord. Shortly after arriving, her sister Beth dies, and Joe's about to give up her writing career forever. Marmee tells Joe that she can grieve, that she has to keep writing. She begs Joe not to let the grief of her sister keep her from writing, and that in this situation, it would have been Beth's wish for her to follow her dream and pursue writing. She's encouraged by the family to write what would become her first novel, Little Women. Amy and Laurie, remember Amy, the younger sister, arrive back from a trip to Europe where Laurie's like, I don't know how to tell you this because I know we had a thing, but me and Amy are getting married. And Joe's like, whoa! And on the day of Laurie and Amy's wedding, Professor Bear comes to Joe and he proposes. And he tells her that he sent her Little Women manuscript to a publisher and it got accepted. Now, of course, there are some differences between Joe's life and Louisa May Alcott, but the primary difference probably is that in the story, Joe gets married. In real life, Louisa May Alcott did not. The show closed only 4 months into its run after just 137 performances, and then it did a 30-city US tour over the course of the next year. The role of Joe was originated by the amazing Sutton Foster. We saw her in Thoroughly Modern Millie, although of course she appears in Shrek the Musical, the revival of Anything Goes, and many, many other theater productions. She's also scheduled to be in The Music Man in the fall on Broadway opposite Hugh Jackman. The musical was nominated for 1 Tony Award, which was Best Leading Actress for Sutton Foster, but she lost the award to Victoria Clark. So I hope that you enjoyed. This is an amazing story that has obviously been adapted into many different formats, full of real life and grief and unrequited love and people learning to love again. And I hope that you enjoy a piece of this one. All right, until next time, see ya!